Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elize Hartley. I was born and raised in Manitoba. On my dad's side, we have a combination of Ojibwe and French. And on my mom's side, we have Iroquois, Malisette, and I don't know what else, but anyway, that's what I found when I was doing my genealogy. So I feel that I'm very well equipped with the First Nations. And we in Manitoba were called Métis because the Métis people lived around the Assiniboine and Red River in the west when it was known as Rupert's Land. It was not Manitoba or Saskatchewan. None of those provinces existed then. There was just two provinces in Canada, which was Quebec and Ontario. So when the government of Canada decided that perhaps we should open the country more, because there was nobody there. I mean, all that vast part of land, there was nobody there, according to them, but we were there. But anyway, how my people got there was that my ancestors were working in the fur trades. And all these young men that were running around up and down the fur trade routes certainly got lonesome and were looking for companionship and somebody to be able to snuggle up to and love. So therefore, who was there but these beautiful Indian gals? And so, why not? One of my ancestors, I found that there was even Scottish in my family, because the men came from England through the Hudson Bay, and they worked there in the fur trades, but they were all men that came to do a certain length of time at the Hudson Bay fur trading post. Well, this young fellow fell in love with an Indian gal, and then when it was time for him to go home, he just said, well, goodbye, nice knowing you. And he left, went back, and she was back with her people, with her children. So part of my family then, on my dad's side, is a bit of Scots layer. See how we get mixed up, but we're still human beings, and we still have the same needs and desires, I suppose so. Now, I come now to my father's men that came to the West. He came by himself as a young man, working in the fur trades as well, and he met this half-breed little gal, and he gave her the name of Angelique, because he was French, and to him she was like an angel, so he called her Angelique. So Angelique and my ancestor, grandfather, married in the Catholic Church. So his name was on the marriage certificate, but hers wasn't, because it said Assiniboine Indian woman, no name. And so, because then we see that my grandpa called her Angelique, because to him she was like an angel. So, and then they had daughters and sons, and because of the connection with the Scottish, their daughter was called Elizabeth. So then, now there's Angelique, grandmother, Elizabeth, another grandmother, and then my dad and me. And my name is Elize. It's a derivative of Elizabeth, because it's spelled E-L-I-Z-E. Instead, I guess they got tired of A-E-B-T, so they cut it off. So here I am with this name. So I was born and raised. Now, as you know that after the fur trade, the people worked with fishing, hunting, and agriculture once Canada. I went a little bit ahead of myself because the government was looking to open up the West because they were afraid that the North Americans, the United States, would come and take that part of the country, and all the West would become United States. So the government started movements to send people out there to try and get people to, it was politics. The politicians went over there and started to speak to the people. And anyway, to make a very long story short, my people were involved with the Louis Rebellion. It wasn't a rebellion, it was an uprising. It was for our people to say, wait a minute, you cannot take our land and our living and throw us out. We need space. So my grandmother and her brothers were first cousins with Louis Riel. So of course, who was going to help but my family? When they had no money and they had no resources to fight for the country, but they did their very best. But anyway, the Canadian government sent a group of soldiers that came from England to come and fight these half-breeds, these Indians out there in Manitoba. So and then that wasn't enough, they formed the Royal Mounted Police, the Northwest Police came as well, and they were ordered to shoot on sight. Anybody that spoke up or felt or looked as if they were going to cause a problem, they were to be shot. And believe me, many of them did. When my people went back to Broken Head Reserve, which they lived on, they had to move because people there were terrified, and they said, the police are looking for you, the army has been here, we can't have you, you must move. So my people moved across. They became people with no land, no place to go, but to make a living for themselves. Some of them starved to death because they didn't have the resources. But my own family moved right to the 49th parallel that separates the United States and Canada in Manitoba. It's called the 49th parallel, and it runs across, and 5 miles from where we were was the United States. So my father and my uncles all figured, if ever the Northwest Mounted Police come, or the Army, we will just get ourselves over the line and they can't get us. And that's where we lived out there in the bush. But living in the bush really makes you understand and know about nature. Like when Walter is talking about the blueberry patches, we used to go blueberry picking, but my mom would always look first and walk around, and if there was any calling cards there that were kind of like today's, we didn't pick there because that was bare. The bears had left their calling cards, that was their patch, and we didn't use it. So there was a respect between us and the wild animals. The wolves never came near us. We picked for days and on end, and not only blueberries, but raspberries and cranberries, and every berry that you can think of, we picked in the summer. Because wintertime, that was all our medicines. So anyway, we had a deep respect for the natural world. We had a deep respect for the animals. And I remember my people going hunting, and they never took more than what they got. You know, so they used to come back and say, gee, we killed this one, but boy, that one that we just saw was much better. Too bad we couldn't get that one. But never touch, because that was it. You take only what you need and you share. And that's how we lived. So I grew up, and we only had only elementary schools because we were so few people that there was an elementary school, and if we wanted high school, we had to leave and go to Winnipeg or to some place closer to Winnipeg where there was high schools, but they were all run by nuns. But anyway, I went and finished my high school in Winnipeg. Then I thought, well, now I have to get a job. So I started looking for a job, and I couldn't get one. So one day I went there was a laundry advertising to somebody, so I went to apply. And this man was very nice. He said to me, "You seem to be very wanting to get going, and you've got a lot of energy, and that's too bad, but are you an Indian?" And I said, "Well, yeah, well, why do you ask?" He said, "Because all the jobs are reserved for white people." So he said, "You can get housework." Housework, yeah. So I thought, okay, take housework for a few months. And I was listening to the radio, and I could hear where Toronto had so many jobs. So many people live in Toronto, so many jobs. And I thought, that's where I'm heading. So I'm 18 years old, and I'm heading for Toronto, and I don't know anybody there, and I've got $20. But in those days, $20 was a lot of money because you could get a room for about $5. So I came to Toronto, got a job, and I thought, oh, nobody knows I'm an Indian here. Great stuff. So I worked and it was in a factory. And because I had able to do figures, I got a job doing part-time workers' timesheets. And they had to be very accurate because if they didn't get the money that they were supposed to, it was me that was in trouble. So anyway, I did that for about a year, and then I met my husband. He had just come back from the war because he was 17 when he went, and he came back. He was 23. And so we got married, and we lived in Toronto. And a year after, I had my first child. But then I realized that my husband had a problem with alcohol and a problem with having dreams and awful nightmares about the war. And so the only job he could get was in construction. And I was married to him for 25 years. I had 5 girls, and I worked all the time I was married because I was always worried about maybe his pay may not make it home. So anyway, here we are. I've raised 5 daughters, and I worked from leaving after I was married, I worked in the Halton Board of Education for 30 years. I went to McMaster and got a BA because I felt that I wasn't quite up to par with the teachers and with the administration, and I thought, well, the only thing to do is to go get one. That's about it. So by doing that and raising my 5 daughters, guess what? There's only one of them that isn't a teacher, and yet. So what I'm saying to you is that you imprint your children, and you're all very young here, so please keep that in mind. Whatever you do, you'll be imprinting your children. Your children are what you are, and they may be a little different one way or another, but they all come back to what your parents have been or what your parents imprinted on you. So the imprint is so important, so please remember that. And for myself, now that I've retired, I'm working more than what I ever did because I'm looking to get our youth past high school. I tell them, once you've got your high school diploma, I don't care what you do. You can always do something, but if you don't have that diploma, you cannot do anything but menial jobs and the least, and then when you do that, you might be okay for a while, but it'll get on your nerves. You need to be able to use your brain and to do the best you can with what you've got.